America is at a crossroads. Sometimes elections represent a real choice. And I know that Joe Biden, with his experience and his wisdom and his decency, can bring us together to help us find that better way. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that, because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful. And you know, no one pushes Joe around.
Didn't that remind you of the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz? Like this? I don't even know words for that. Here to respond is Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, there's so much to say in so little time, but your response to John Kasich. Go.
Well, look, he's been in angry denial for 4 years. I think what we saw tonight was the beginning of the collapse of Joe Biden's basement strategy. Joe Biden has been hiding in his basement since he won the nomination. But tonight was Bernie Sanders' night. Tonight, so John Kasich is promising voters, don't pay attention to all the craziness on the Democratic side. Joe isn't that crazy. Well, you know who didn't believe John Kasich? Bernie Sanders didn't believe John Kasich, because Bernie Sanders stood up there and said, our radical socialist agenda has won. We've taken over the Democratic Party, and Joe Biden is ours. And that really underscores the stakes of this election. If the Democrats win, you are looking at Bernie in ascension. You're looking at AOC. You're looking at, mark my words, Elizabeth Warren as Treasury Secretary. Bernie might be Secretary of State. These are radicals, and that's where the Democratic Party is. And I don't think that's where the American people are.
Ted, Senator, excuse me, I've known him for a long time. Senator, the Midwest, you think of Midwest states. That's where I just spent last week in the Midwest. I'm not getting this strategy. I'm just not getting America's a horrible, awful, racist country. We're terrible. Trump's rotten. Statues are coming down and we don't care. Notice the rioting wasn't mentioned at all. The damage done by the rioting, that was not mentioned. How does this really appeal in John Kasich's Ohio, in Pennsylvania, and in places like Minnesota, Wisconsin? Does this really appeal, this stuff?
Well, it doesn't. And the Democrats today are the party of the rich. They're the party of coastal elites. They're the party of Manhattan and San Francisco. Kamala Harris was a bold move to lock down the vote in San Francisco. And that's who they're trying to appeal to is the radical left. When it comes to working men and women, when it comes to union members, when it comes to the Ohio steelworker, they were nowhere to be found. The Democrats don't have a message for Teamsters. The Democrats don't have a message for right now. Antifa mobs are burning police union halls. It used to be that union leaders would stand together, but the Democrats have said we care more about the woke mob than we do about standing with cops or firefighters or working men and women. And to go tonight without saying a meaningful word about the riots, about the police officers being murdered, it's an example of how the Democratic Party, they're getting more and more extreme. And it's all because they hate Donald Trump. That's what they stand for, is radical leftism and hating Trump. I don't think that's a majority vision in America.
And they go for a Hollywood celebrity to be the MC tonight. I guess they hope everybody watching is a desperate housewife, Senator Cruz, that they're just going to throw in with the Democrats. Hell, we're going to lose the free market. We'll lose police in the suburbs. But we really think this is a fun ride to be on. Again, I don't get it. I don't think it plays. Democrats, though, also use the night to spread, and I have to get your take on this, Senator Cruz, this post office conspiracy to rig the election. Watch.
The U.S. Postal Service. It is central to so much of our lives. Veterans count on the post office to get their prescriptions. Social Security beneficiaries count on the post office to get their checks.
He is putting the lives of Nevada's seniors at risk by trying to defund the post office.
The president may hate the post office, but he's still going to have to send them a change of address card come January.
A note to Ms. Longoria and friends. They stopped sending Social Security checks through the mail in 2013 under President Obama. Senator Cruz, first it was Russia, then it was Ukraine, and now it's the post office. A new hoax for every time and every moment.
And this one is bizarre. It is impressive to see the Democratic talking points that when they decide on a message, every single Democrat across the country repeats it word for word. But you know, the post office, I'm willing to bet that not a single person there speaking has bought a stamp in the last 5 years. They have no idea what's going on with the post office. But look, we also know what this is all about, which is the Democrats are desperate to beat Donald Trump. And so they're pushing for this scheme that they call universal mail-in voting, because they want everyone to vote by mail. And the reason they want it is that mail-in voting is particularly susceptible to voter fraud. They want to enable what they've done in California, what's called voter harvesting. You know, in Texas, we have tough rules to protect against voter fraud in Texas. And some of the history of them, they were actually adopted by Democratic legislatures in Texas because there was a long history in South Texas of voter fraud in Democratic primaries where unscrupulous political operatives, for example, they'd go to a nursing home. They'd go to each person and say, here, fill out your ballot here. And here, honey, let me help you. Just check Joe Biden right here. Fill in that dot. And they collect them all. And then magically, all the Joe Biden ones get mailed. And, you know, if someone was stubborn enough to vote Trump, well, they just kind of happen to throw that ballot in the mail. And the Democrats, in the trash, rather, and the Democrats, they want to be able to enable voter fraud. That's what this whole post office nonsense is about, is because they're trying to be in a position to steal the election. It's about their hatred for Donald Trump.
Senator Cruz, really quickly, I also believe there's a very cynical undercurrent involved in all of this that almost wants to see a building movement toward more civil unrest if things don't go their way, because then they'll say, oh, you took it from the mailboxes. You stole the mailboxes. It seems like I find this to be a very dangerous tactic. They're playing with fire here with these types of lies. And are you worried about that? Real quick.
Well, listen, you're exactly right. And we've seen, whether it's Representative Presley or earlier Maxine Waters, who urged people to engage in civil unrest, essentially encouraged the rioters. You had in Minneapolis when Antifa, when mobs were firebombing stores and police cars, you had the Attorney General of Minnesota holding up the Antifa handbook, and his son, the Minneapolis City Councilman, saying, I stand with Antifa. The Democratic Party, when given a choice between the safety and security of the men and women in this country versus the radical mob, they've said, we side with the mob. And I got to say, I feel for the residents of places like Seattle and Portland, where the mob has taken over and the Democratic politicians have said, to hell with you, to the men and women that they're responsible to protect, because we're not willing to stand up to the radicals who are burning our cities down. That's sadly who the Democratic Party is listening to right now.
Senator, thank you so much for joining us tonight.